Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital city, Abuja. I am Zainab Bala. It's a beautiful morning here in the capital city, and as usual, we'll be bringing you exciting package on the program. But before that, we're going to take a look at the news highlights. Nigeria Police Force has reiterated the ban on officers across the country from demanding customs papers from drivers. In a tweet on Sunday, Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi also said officers should stop demanding tinted glass permit. According to him, tinted glass permit remains suspended across the country, noting that no policeman should demand customs papers except on joint operation, but not just on mere routine checks. Now, in other news, airline operators and fuel marketers are yet to agree on a new pricing framework for aviation fuel known as Jet A1. This followed the intervention of the House of Representatives, which summoned stakeholders over the scarcity and skyrocketing price of Jet A1, which has disrupted flight operations while both parties have been meeting since Tuesday at the instance of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. Now, at the meeting with the House of Representatives on Monday, the meeting agreed that aviation fuel would be sold at 500 naira per litre, as against the over 600 naira sold in some parts of the country, while airline operators would also be licensed to import aviation turbine kerosene. However, a follow-up meeting coordinated by the Executive Director, Distribution Systems, Storage and Retailing Infrastructure of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Ogbu Okoha, and Group Executive Director, Downstream of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Adeyemi Adetunji, failed to agree on the new pricing template. Meanwhile, the team has been meeting since then, but they have not been able to agree on a new pricing template, while aviation fuel price has not changed. Now in business, International Monetary Fund has advised the Central Bank of Nigeria to scale back its credit intervention programs as they are likely to cause the market distortions in the long run. The IMF stated this in its report titled Nigeria Staff Report for the 2021 Article Consultation. The Washington-based lender said the CBN's credit intervention schemes were a response to the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The IMF added that while CBN's internal and external audit mechanisms generally adhere to international standards, its act needs to be modernized to strengthen its autonomy, governance, and to establish price stability as its primary objective. However, Nigerian authorities believe the CBN's multifaceted role is justified since it is shepherding a frail recovery with intervention programs targeted at sectors capable of helping job creation. And on the foreign scene, UN refugee chief said on Sunday that at least 10 million people have fled their homes in Ukraine due to the devastating war in the country. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the port city of Mariupol is suffering under a campaign of terror waged by Russian troops, while city council officials said thousands of residents had been taken by force across the border onto Russian territory. UN human rights officers say more than 900 civilians have been killed since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and more than 1,450 have been injured due to a lack of information from badly hit cities, including Mariupol. The actual totals are thought to be considerably higher. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Sunday it had once again fired its Kinzhal hypersonic missiles in Ukraine, destroying a large storage site for fuels and lubricants in the Mykolaiv region. Zelensky said in an address to the nation early on Sunday that the country wants peace and that ongoing talks with Russia are not simple or pleasant, but they are necessary. He has requested a direct meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, that's it on news highlights. Well, today on the program, we are going to be talking insecurity and the welfare of security agencies in the country. Before that, we're also going to be taking a look at our top headlines and other discussions on the program. But before that, let's take a look at the events of the 21st of March in history. All right, very, very interesting events that happened today in history. Now, talking to that happened to us here in Nigeria back in 2018, we all remember the kidnapping of the Dapchi schoolgirls, and they were returned on this day, back in 2018. And also today is the day to celebrate children with Down syndrome. Children with Down syndrome are special kids with special needs, and all we can do is to show love. Taking care of a child with Down syndrome can be quite difficult and challenging at the same time. But today is really important to talk about this day, to show love, to show that they are special, in the world. Today is also the day of colors, the day to celebrate colors. Colors, shape our world. They give us, a sense of belonging, and they add beauty, to our world. And today is that day to celebrate colors. Very, very interesting, events that happened today in history. Well, that's that on Today in History. Let's take a quick time out, and when we come back, we're going to be taking a look at what's happening on our dailies this morning. This day.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. These particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you're near someone who has COVID-19, or by touching a contaminated surface and then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. The virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings. Maintain a safe distance from others, at least 2 meters, even if they don't appear to be sick. Wear a mask in public, especially indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home if you feel unwell. Get vaccinated. Properly fitted masks can help prevent the spread of the virus from the person wearing the mask to others. Masks alone do not protect against COVID-19 and should be combined with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Protect yourself and others around you by knowing the facts and taking appropriate precautions. Follow advice provided by your local health authority. This message is brought to you by Trust TV.
tribal, original.
Because I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital. It's time for us to take a look at some of the stories making headway on our dailies this morning, and we're going to start with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story there says APC convention. Stakeholders perfect consensus list as aspirants intensify lobby. And the writers there say Adamu Al-Mokura, Mustafa Akume, upbeat. High-level consultations ongoing, and this is according to party sources. Sharif quits. Just yesterday, we saw the news of some, aspirants, quitting, to contest, in some of these chairmanship and other races in the APC, following the consensus reached, by the party. And then we're going to see other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper, right on the top on page 14, 2023 presidency. Saraki Tambuwal, Bala Muhammad agree on consensus. And on page 4, Zamfara hires ex-servicemen as bandits displace over 700,000 persons. That's quite alarming. You're going to see the details of that story on page 4. And then there's a pictorial there that shows you a taxi driver sitting on his car roof as he watched the chaos around the fueling station in Jabi, Abuja yesterday. You'd agree with me that the queues are not, intensifying. The queues are not reducing, and a lot of people are complaining. Just as I was coming down to the studio this morning, I saw a very, very long queue, and people, it's really sad, and people are angry about this. We waited and waited, and we were hoping that, the fuel queues were going to subside, but it seems like, they are becoming even more pressing and problematic for us. I really hope that the government, sees to this and brings to halt all of that, fuel crisis that we are seeing. There are other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. There's one about Daily Trust economists to federal government tackle rising inflation, oil sector crisis now. And then you see other stories still on the Daily Trust newspaper on page 21. Commuters angry as fare continues to rise in Abuja. Just this morning, a lot of people are actually finding it even difficult, to move from one place to another. It has become a problem that the fares are hiking, and also it's even worse that people can't even get, taxis and buses, to move, within the city just because of the fuel crisis we are facing presently in our country, and we really do hope that this comes to an end. There's another story on page 20 that says, my mosque member impregnated my wife. That's quite a very interesting story. This is according to Oyo Imam, and you'd find details of that story on page 20. It's really sad that we see, religious leaders, or the place where it's supposed to be a sanctuary is now becoming, hazard. It's becoming a problem to us, and it's really, really sad. On page 14 on the Daily Trust newspaper, Jatishan in Gombe APC reconciliation failing defections. This is according to Goje. These are the major stories you find on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and if you like to get more details, grab a copy of the paper. Let's take a look at other stories on the Punch this morning. APC convention. Southwest governors reject Buhari's allies as secretary vice chair. And then you see the riders there that say external forces trying to impose persons on Southwest, says Akeredolu. Adamu Al-Mokura, Musa divide National Assembly over chairmanship race. You find details of that story on page 8 on the Punch newspaper. And right at the top on page 30, Genco's counter NBET over purchase agreements list 1.64 trillion naira debts. And that story is on page 30. Federal government incurs fresh 950 billion naira domestic borrowing in Q1 of 2022, and this is according to the DMO. There you go, fresh borrowings again. Saraki Tambuwal meet plan consensus candidate to lobby Atiku. You'd also see the story about Malemi OK's seizure of Kyari accomplices' property accounts. You'd find the details of that story on page 42 on the Punch this morning. Buhari aloof away while Nigeria burns, economy crashing, and this is according to the PDP. Over 70% of drugs dispensed in Nigeria substandard. This is according to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. That doesn't sound good. Substandard. This is devastating to our health and endangering people's lives. I really do hope that there's an investigation done in that regard. And then you see a pictorial there that shows you protesters and security forces during a demonstration in Tunis, the Tunisian capital, against the suspension of the mixed presidential parliamentary system by President Kais Saied in Tunis on Sunday. And on page 13, farmers, herders clashes. Afenifere faults planned law to make non-natives indigent. On page 5, you see the story about father of 4 arrested with 20.75 kilogram black liquid cocaine from Brazil. You know, yesterday I saw that story, and it was really interesting that drug peddlers always find a means to smuggle drugs. And it's interesting that when they are caught, you know, with this other form, they devise other means, you know, to still smuggle drugs. And this, you know, this black liquid cocaine was found hidden in a makeup kit, in a mascara. Imagine a mascara that women usually used, you know, to lift up their lashes, and then there's liquid cocaine inside of it. I was really wondering how, you know, they creatively, you know, did that to actually hide cocaine in that. This shows you how devious, you know, these drug peddlers can be. You see other stories on the Punch. Obiano's water drinking video. EFCC on a witch hunt alleges Abga. So these are basically the major stories you'd find on the Punch newspaper this morning. Let's take a sneak peek into the Nigerian Tribune and see what's happening. PDP presidential ticket. Governors Atiku draw battle line. Saraki Tambuwal Bala opt for consensus. And then you see that ex-vice president declares Wednesday, and that, you know, story is on page 2. Quite a number of interesting stories talking basically politics is making headway on the papers this morning. And then there's a special report that says 296 billion naira Abuja metro train lie idle as FCT residents face transportation woes. You'd also see other stories. Reps may seek judicial interpretation of Electoral Act judgment. We're going to be taking a look at that a little later. You'd also see DMO speaks on Nigeria's public debt. You see the details of that story on page 4. Constitution amendment. Afenifere cautions NAS on indigenship. Police ban personnel from demanding customs papers, tinted permit. Some will say that's good news because a lot of people, I'm sure, have stories of such encounters where police ask you for tinted permit and then custom papers. And, you know, this really is not their jurisdiction. They're not supposed to be checking such papers. Banditry created 700,000 IDPs in Zamfara. This is according to Matawale. We're also seeing that similar story on the Daily Trust newspaper, and it's on page 37. Flood displaces 7 communities in Niger. And then NDLEA naps father 4 with black liquid cocaine at Abuja airport. Over 60 children down as outbreak of measles hits Benue IDP camp. My goodness, it's going to be devastating in an IDP camp with the crowd. I really do hope that there's an intervention done in that regard. Maybe vaccinations, because vaccines seem to help, lower the intensity of measles this day. It used to be really, really bad. Chickenpox, measles, all these borne diseases. Vaccination seems to lower, their effects, and I really do hope that there's some form of intervention done in those, IDP camps, because these places are, breeding grounds and one of the most vulnerable, place for such, disease, to break. You see other stories on the Nigerian Tribune also that says APC convention, governors, senators split over chairman, youth leader. And then the writers there say Southwest governors endorse Kekemeke Omishori for vice chairman, national secretary. Modu Sharif withdraws from chairmanship race. Senators divided over Adamu Musa Al-Makura. Party in disarray in Gombe. This is according to Goji. And then there's a pictorial there of a very large crowd of a protest in Spain over fuel, food, electricity price hike. Thousands protested, in Madrid on Sunday over soaring prices of food, electricity, fuel, among others, exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It seems we're not alone in this. Spain is also going through similar situation we are having down here in Nigeria. You would agree with me that times are hard, things are hard, there's no fuel, food prices are hiking, electricity also is now a problem. We saw, the shutting down of our national grid, although there have been reports that have been fixed, but we still have other pressing issues, going on in the country presently. Well, that is that. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning and see what's happening there. APC convention, Southwest picks Kekemeke Omishori. Akeredolu warns against interference. Aspirant screening failed to hold yesterday. Then senators splits on Musa Adamu Al-Makura. You'll find the details of that story on page 4 on the Nation newspaper. And right at the top on page 8, unions to cripple varsities. NAAT begins strike. SSANU, NASU warms up. And then on page 8, you see the story about Buhari, federal government reviewing Southeast security. Obiozo's house attack flayed. Policemen not authorized to check customs papers. And then also the story about 700,000 IDPs in my state, Governor laments. And that's on page 8. Tambuwal Bala Saraki ready for North's consensus candidates. Controversy rages on overzoning in PDP. You see also the story about share deals put 20 directors on stock market blacklist. These are some of the major stories on the Nation newspaper this morning, but there's a pictorial also there that shows you ex-Eagle stars honor Tinubu at 70 with novelty march. Well, some would say that's a form of eye service. Well, some would describe that as that. Vessel held over suspected crude oil theft. 2 arrested for bikers' murder. That's quite tragic. If you want to get the details of that story, you can grab a copy of the Nation newspaper this morning. Well, these are some of the stories making headway on some of our dailies this morning. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking some more. You stay.
When a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios in the nation's capital. If you are just tuning, the show has just started. Well, let's take a look at this report about Media Trust Limited partnering with Startup Kano to build capacity of young innovators in media technology. At a media hackathon program in Kano, 15 young men and women participate in various activities aimed at assisting journalists' capacity in news gathering across the country. Our correspondent, Idris Jabril, was there.
In collaboration with Daily Trust and Trust Television, the Startup Kano Media Hackathon is an initiative aimed at encouraging young innovators in the media industry. It also seeks to address some of the technological challenges of Nigeria's media industry.
We decided to come up with the hackathon to see how we can support young people in technology and the creative industry, to come together and create things that will simplify the use of media for users and consumers. For example, we have two teams today, the Team Technology and the Team Creatives. The Team Technology are going to create tech softwares, mobile apps, and website that journalists can use to simplify their works. And then the creative people, the Team Creatives, are going to write about trending topics in the globe. They are going to create videos that would depict International Women's Day and women generally. And then would have graphic designers that would come up with concept designs for Daily Trust and the Trust TV. So at the end of the day, we would see whose work is the best one, and then we would prize them, and then we keep supporting them. And the ones that didn't win, we would keep mentoring them to see how they can, upskill their skills so that they can, keep competing in other competitions.
According to Media Trust Limited, the Kano Hackathon initiative is the first of its kind to engage young people at different capacity in the field of media industry, and that the partnership with Startup Kano will provide avenue by which media practitioners across the country will have access to fresh ideas in news writing and reporting.
So this is the first one, but we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Kano startup that involves not only hackathon but other engagement. But we are also looking at startups in other places like Kaduna, Abuja, and see how we can move from one place to another. But here with the Kano startup, we have a bigger agreement with them, which covers so many other things. Like when they do their women conference, we were partners in that conference, and so there are other activities that we are looking at.
So basically, we are looking at talents that will impact our programming. As you know, as Trust TV, as a new television channel, we are looking at breaking new barriers in television broadcasting. As you can see from our clarity, from our content. So this is basically a way of looking at young people. They are very creative in terms of videography and also content production, that we can commission to do things for us from any part of the country, but also looking at young talents that we can encourage so that they can be part of our journey. As a new channel, the basic thing is content, and we want to be very competitive in terms of putting out our content, and that's why we are organizing this so that we can get the best of the best. Not just impacting us as a TV channel, but also as a company in general, as a multimedia company where we have the newspaper and also the digital arm and also the TV. We want people that can work across platforms so that they can impact on the kind of journalism we deliver generally.
The participants, drawn from various aspects of life, have developed different concepts expected to move media industry to the next level, especially in areas of technological advancement. Aminu Babayo has developed web application that will gather news from different media outlets across the country, while Abdusamad Ibrahim is designing the cover of Daily Trust magazine and podcast poster, as Chidima wrote about the humanitarian and economic impact of the Russian-Ukraine conflict.
The name of the application is All-in-One News. The reason why I name it All-in-One News is because it gathers news from different media outlets, thereby reducing the tax of journalists in terms of searching information, in search of searching news from Google or from Bing or from other search engines. If a person is not well trained in accessing information online, so he might find it difficult where to source a genuine and reliable information. So that's the major reason why we developed this web application software. So automatically, when you open the web application, on the dashboard, it will fetch latest headlines from Google News. So we use an API that will do that thing. For example, when you open a Google News, you will see different news that are like kind of matched in the same topic, all the same headline matched together. So you cannot know whether this one has been posted today or sometimes people used to find it difficult to like kind of identify news. So here it is fetching only the headlines.
This is the process I'm going through for designing, is bringing the pictures in and seeing the possible concepts that would go through to make a beautiful flyer. Okay. And so I'm using an app called Figma.
Okay.
It's a flexible online app that I can use to design anything I want anywhere. So the concept here is designing a magazine cover that is all about politics.
I chose the topic, the humanitarian and economic impact of the Russian and Ukraine war. So I'm writing about how this war affects both the humanitarian aspect and also the economic aspect of both Ukraine and Russia. So before writing this, I've been able to make a lot of researches, shifting it back to when the war started and what's the impact, what this particular war, how is that affecting the lives of the people who are living in Ukraine and also Russia, and also the economic impact, because both Russia and Ukraine are major producers, they're powerhouses of agricultural products.
Highlight of the Kano Media Hackathon program is the presentation of checks by the Media Trust Limited to each of the 6 winners out of the 15 that participated on different categories. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Really very, very interesting initiative there. Getting checks, that's quite very, very nice to have, and a very wonderful initiative for young people to thrive. Now it's time for us to look at our first discussion on the program this morning, talking about insecurity and the way forward. Now, in 2019, the 33% of Nigerians who came in contact with the Nigerian police force paid a bribe, and they did it an average of 4 times. As a whole, the police officers are part of the economy too, so the money paid to them is not lost. However, it is a misallocation of resources. The economy will be better off if consumers can spend the billions of naira on items they wish to buy instead of giving it to police officers. It's like paying a tax with nothing substantial in return. The question now is if the increase in the welfare of the Nigerian police force will stop them from collecting bribe from the general public. A retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Inelogulu, he's going to join us later on the program. And we also have a security consultant, Stephen Okori, who will also be joining the conversation this morning. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Initially, before we started the program, we were just having a brief chat, and you were talking to us about the situation in the country. Could you share your view on what's happening? Is Nigeria in chaos right now?
It's a very pathetic situation that we're in right now. Nigeria, for me, I think is in coma. Well, it's not dead yet, but it's on life support, if you ask me, because there are a lot of challenges that we are facing, and we're not seeing any solution in sight. Considering the fuel situation, this is the 8th week, and there's no solution. I think that we lack a crisis management plan in this country, because if certain challenges occur or they start, I expect that in 1-2 weeks or so, we should sort out issues. But here we are. It's increasing. Everything is just happening to this country. I think we have missed certain things when we want to talk about leadership in this country. There's something that we are missing.
Oh, I really do hope, that turns out better. Now let's talk about the front burner, the issue on the front burner. A lot of people have said that the insecurity situation we are facing, in the country is as a result of lack of proper welfare, for our security operatives. Are you of that opinion as well?
Yeah, I want to say is a contributory factor because Nigeria as a government, through the Nigerian police force, they need to really work on the dignity and well-being of their personnel. Is a factor that will enable or ensure that the personnel, they succeed in trying to prevent crime and as their core mandate, why they are supposed to be doing what they are doing. In the event where they are not motivated, by giving them a better welfare package, you don't expect results from them because these gentlemen, officers and men, they are in the forefront trying to see how to protect citizens of this country. So there's need for us to see how to give them better welfare beyond what we are seeing today.
Okay.
We have seen in this country where police officers protested for lack of payment of their duty toll allowance. Then in Maiduguri some couple of years ago, so such events shouldn't even occur at all. Very recently I saw the current IGP saying certain things, how he has made effort to see how their welfare has improved upon and all that. These are issues that we're not supposed to be talking about now, because the insecurity situations are alarming, they are increasing every day, so they need to be motivated, by giving them proper welfare package.
Okay. Now, when you talk to, 1,001 Nigerians,
yes,
particularly motorists, you hear the harrowing encounter with police officers where they ask for, pennies. Some demand, some feel it's a right that you have to give something. For instance, when you're traveling to other parts of the country, for instance, I saw a situation where there's a basket where before you pass through, that route, you have to drop something inside of it. So if we're talking about intrinsic values, the police are supposed to be, watch out for, internal security and all of that. Should that be, something to gauge, whether they should be on the lookout for the people or, collect bribe on the other hand?
You see, collecting bribe or monies on the road by police officers, it has become an endemic thing. It is now part and parcel of them. You see, each IGP that assumes office usually condemns acts like that. But I feel that those condemnations by the IGs, it falls on deaf ears because they don't respect those instructions that they should not collect monies on the highway. It has become a normal practice for them. So I think that the police system should be in place, a department for disciplinary actions that will be melted on police officers when they are on the road collecting such monies from motorists and all that. But I don't see where they are penalized for carrying out such act on the highway. And you see, when they are posted or deployed to the highways, their first priority is to see how to make money or collect money from motorists, leaving their professional assignment or reasons why they've been deployed on the road. So most times you see them carried away, hanging their guns as if the guns are handbags, the way you see them hanging it, as if they are handbags. Their interest is to see how to extort motorists by collecting monies from them. So I think that the government, through the police, should look at these issues and see how to, because it gives them the image that it portrays is very, very bad, because even when foreigners even visit this country and all that, they see all these things on the road, happening to people, which is absolutely not correct. It's very unprofessional of them, but I think that is a tall order to try to see how to stop it because it has eaten deep into the system.
Okay. Now, so how can the government intervene, in this regard? What is the way forward?
It's by penalizing them. Penalty should be melted on them. It's either you're suspended or you are sacked or they should look out for. But penalty, I think, is the best ways to see how to deter them from going into such act on the highway. But we have these stories or rumor that these monies that they collect trickles down from the point that they collect it, it goes to certain quotas and all that. Right. So such a line or chain should be investigated if it's actually correct or not. So people, they should be penalized for involving themselves in acts like that. But in this country, are they penalized? The answer is no. Very recently I saw on a video on the social media where a soldier was crying, where a senior officer saw him collecting monies from motorists and all that. So we should expect things like that. They should be penalized for carrying out such acts, but we're not even saying that. So for me, the best way to see how to go about it is for them to be penalized. Anybody that is caught should be penalized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's a report, I saw by SB Morgan Intelligence that says Nigeria has lost no fewer than 964 security agents, including 322 policemen and 642 soldiers in attacks with insurgents and bandits within the last 1 year.
Yes.
From these statistics, it shows that we are short, on security, on security agents, and it's a problem for us, isn't it?
It is. It is a problem. When we begin to lose officers and men that are in the battlefield, as a result of these challenges we are talking about, it goes to show that even we that are the ordinary civilians are not even safe at all, So the government, for me, I think that they really need to see how to provide the necessary hardware gadgets for these security agencies and the agents that we have for them to be able to protect themselves. I've said it times without number in occasions like this where the government needs to do what they need to do. There are certain things that we are not meeting up in terms of international best practices, what is obtainable outside here. So certain things need to come on board. If we really need help, there's nothing wrong with inviting the West to come and see how to help us in fighting these challenges we're talking about, because we are losing officers and men, and we are crying of inadequate number, to police us, or to protect us. The numbers are not enough, and we are losing this very huge number, So there's need for us to see how to sit up and do the needful by protecting the people that are protecting us, So the government needs to provide. And each time we hear the government say they are providing, they are providing. And each time we hear these heads of the police and the other security agencies complaining of lack of funds, that they are underfunded, what they need to do, they are not able to do because of lack of funds, So I think the executive and the security agencies, there's need for them to see how to really work together and provide what they need to fight the battle.
Another issue, closely related to this is the welfare, of families of slain police or security, agents. We have seen horrifying stories where, some of their families come out, and say after their awards have passed away, there's been no...
They're abandoned.
Nobody has reached out to them and all of that. Should there be like a form of package, for these families, or what should be, the...
Yes, absolutely. There should be a form of package. We hear of police pension and all that. I think that these policies or programs should not just end on the paper, We should see it playing out, real playing out. But that's not what we're seeing. We have seen situations where they are even ordered to vacate barracks when they are they are breadwinners passed on in the line of duty, So the government, through the security agencies, needs to provide what it takes for the families of slain officers and men that have died in the line of duty, because they died serving the nation, So their loved ones should not be left, unattended to. They should try and see how to provide what they really need as a package for them not to feel the loss of their breadwinner, at the end of the day. So I think it's a good idea for the government to see how to. But you see, most of these things, even if they do, it ends on the paper. We don't see it playing out, So I think that a monitoring system should be on board, to see how these things, packages are actually delivered to families of officers and men that have lost in the battlefield.
There have been, news or reports, I would say rather, that Nigerians are not patriotic, but we are not patriotic anymore. Even our security operatives are not patriotic.
Yes.
Could this be the reason why? Because you think even if they put their lives on the line, nothing will be done, to their families.
Exactly. These are the issues. They feel that because they have seen from practical reasons why they shouldn't even put their lives on the line. Because even their colleagues that have lost their lives, if they don't see the government doing anything in favor to their families, So, excuse me, when issues like that happen and they don't see where government responds to the slain families, they will not want to put their life on the line, So they will try to see how to cut corners to see that they are not either killed or end up being disabled at the end of the day. So for the fear of government not taking care of their families at the end of the day, they will want to stake out their life for the country and the protection of citizens.
Really very interesting. There's a story on the Daily Trust newspaper that says for-hires ex-servicemen as bandits displace over 700,000 persons.
Yes.
Ex-servicemen, will there be any impact?
Yes. I am an advocate of community-based policing. I've said it times without number that there is need for the vigilante group to be on board to see how to contribute or complement the efforts of the regular security agencies that we have. And I've said it before that there is need for ex-servicemen that have retired, left the city and retired to their communities or villages, They have experience, whether we like it or not. So by the time they add up the experience that they have with the support of other able-bodied youths that they have in their various communities, it will go a long way in trying to see how to reduce or mitigate these insecurity issues that we're having. I've said it before. I did an article where I suggested that ex-servicemen can also play a key role based on their experience. Most times they just end up becoming farmers, in their villages. So by the time you bring them on board to support the efforts of vigilante, by involving them in the activities of vigilante, it will go a long way to see how to bring results. So it's a noble idea for Zamfara government to think of this by bringing ex-servicemen on board to see how to police their communities. So I love what they have done.
Well, we're going to continue the conversation right after this break. Stephen Okoro will still be with us in the studio right after the break. Do stay. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital, and we're talking insecurity and the welfare of our security operatives. And a security consultant, Stephen Okori, is still here with us in the studio talking to us about this issue. Now, earlier, before we went on that break, you have always advocated, for community policing and also, vigilante groups.
Yes.
But we've seen also instances where vigilante groups became a menace, like the NSACA in Katsina that were dissolved, recently. I think it's one thing to have them, and it's another problem that people are concerned about is keeping them in check. How can we do that to have them effectively? Okay, thank you. In every system or institution that we have in this country, there are bad eggs. Even in the police, there are bad eggs. In the military, there are also bad eggs. Even in the traditional institutions, we have bad eggs. So it is no news for us to have bad eggs in the vigilante. The most important thing is to see how to put an eye on them, to see how to check them. How do you do that? Number one, I think that in recruiting members of the vigilante, there are critical stakeholders that are in the various communities that we have. Traditional rulers, heads of faith-based organizations or institutions, either the pastor or imams and all that. You have non-governmental organizations within these communities that we're talking about. You have market women, they are in groups. These are major stakeholders that form part of community policing, Now, when you want to recruit, we have people in these communities that don't have questionable character. All right. You do proper background check on them. Once you do that, you can form them into groups and begin to see how to supervise or coordinate their activities. Who does that? The traditional rulers and these stakeholders that we're talking about. In the event where they are found wanting in the course of their duties of policing their communities, who do you hold responsible? You go back to these stakeholders that formed themselves or put themselves together to recruit or to select them. You understand? So when we do proper check, due diligence in recruiting these vigilante, members of the vigilante group, I think it will go a long way to see how to help the situation. So it's not a situation or a period where you just begin to harness or just pick people randomly from nowhere. We have people that have proper upbringing, that they don't have any issues in terms of their behavior, In the event that, they misuse the opportunities that they have assigned them to do, you hold these people responsible. I think by doing that, we'll go a long way to check the activities of members of the vigilante. And the vigilante, of course, that it will be under the supervision of the Nigerian police. Right. So with that, we can get result. It is not, I think that they have more advantageous roles to play, rather than looking at the menace or whatever they have tried to see how to constitute in the country. Like if you look at the activities of the civilian JTF in the Northeast, they are doing well. The military keeps commending them for aiding them, for supporting them, for complementing their efforts by trying to let them know that these are informants or locations of Boko Haram and ISWAP members, And in other communities too, we have seen where vigilante rescued police officers that were kidnapped somewhere in the River State, So they have duties that they are performing, and for me, they are good enough to see how to complement the efforts of the police by making that the community policing initiative works well. So now, as a security consultant, would you say, Nigeria's insecurity situation is on the decline? Because just yesterday we saw, gunmen attack a police station in Imo State, and we're also seeing other pockets of attacks in other parts of the country. Would you say it's toning down, or we're not making headway at all?
I don't think it's toning down, because every day we get reports that there's an attack somewhere. Every day attacks must happen, they must occur. So for me, it is not in a decline at all, it is increasing. So it's for the security agencies to try to see how to rise to the occasion. You see, there's a lot that they need to do. Information gathering, you know, they should try and see how to work in synergy with members of the communities that they are policing, you know, because the police must collaborate with members of the community for them to work effectively. They need information from the members of the community, you know, and it's left for us that are members of the community to imbibe that security culture of see something, say something. You don't just see and keep quiet. When you see something that you are not sure of, you know, there's nothing wrong with reporting to the police. So why I talk about vigilante now, for instance, if certain communities don't have presence of the formal security agencies, who do they need to report to? They need to report to the vigilante. Once they do that, vigilante can see how to address the situation. And if it's beyond them, they can now transfer the situation to, or invite the police to come, you know. So it is not possible for us to have presence of the conventional security agencies in this country, in all communities. It is not possible. But it is possible for us to have the presence of vigilante. You understand? So by the time we synergize with the police or the other relevant security agencies, we will get results.
You know, there's a report I saw, you know, by the UN. It said Nigeria cannot win the war, you know, with insurgents on the battlefield because it is not employing the right approach, you know, to tackling the insecurity situation in the country. Are you of that opinion as well? Is our approach not what we are supposed to be exploring at this time? What are we doing wrong?
You see, the war in the Northeast, it's something that we are not familiar with. It's the warfare that the opponents are not known. Right. You know, they interact, they mix up with the normal citizens that are going about their lawful businesses. You know, so it's difficult for us to begin to see how to differentiate who is Boko Haram, who is not Boko Haram, and all that. But the fact is, the government, through the security agencies, are applying both kinetic and non-kinetic approach to it. Kinetic approach is use of force. Non-kinetic is using other means like dialogue, discussions, and try to see how to provide basic amenities within communities that are in this war that we're talking about. So it depends on how the UN, the team that have assessed the government or the activities of our security agencies by coming to that conclusion and saying that it's difficult for us to win the war, you know. But for me, I think that we are applying the necessary methods and all that. But if it's difficult for us going forward, there's nothing wrong with trying to see how to call for assistance or help. We have seen where in Pakistan, where terrorist attacks are going down, you know, how are they doing it? Which methods, which approaches are they using? There's nothing wrong with us collaborating with the Pakistanis, the defense agency, to see how to make our own work as well. In Afghanistan, it is also going down. What are they doing? We should try how to discuss and see how to apply the methods that they are using as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's quickly go on a break. When we come back, our other guests will join in the conversation. Stay with us.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. These particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you're near someone who has COVID-19 or by touching a contaminated surface and then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. The virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings. Maintain a safe distance from others at least 2 meters even if they don't appear to be sick. Wear a mask in public, especially indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home if you feel unwell. Get vaccinated. Properly fitted masks can help prevent the spread of the virus from the person wearing the mask to others. Masks alone do not protect against COVID-19 and should be combined with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Protect yourself and others around you by knowing the facts and taking appropriate precautions. Follow advice provided by your local health authority. This message is brought to you by Trust TV.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, you're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and we're talking insecurity and the welfare of servicemen. And we have a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Inalegu, here with us to talk to us about some of the issues, you know, making headway. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak. It's nice having you on the program. Now, according to reports, the Nigeria Police has the worst welfare program for both serving and retired men. Would you say that this is also fueling the lack of success we are seeing, you know, in the fight against insecurity in the country?
It's a pleasure for me to be here. First of all, where you have the Nigeria Police Force is the primary agency of government that is responsible for internal security. In other words, the NPF has primacy when it comes to internal security issues. Now, for you to be able to perform optimally in the prevention of crime, investigation of crime, control of crime generally, there should be a level of motivation that can boost the morale of officers. Unfortunately, the story has not been very palatable. Personnel of the NPF have not been adequately taken care of. But it did in terms of shelter, in terms of allowances, in terms of salary, pension, and the rest of it. So, of course, this has militating effect, but there are multiple factors responsible for the rise in crime. But if the agency that is charged, primarily responsible for this, and the morale is not as high as should be, unfortunately it didn't start today. It's been there for a long time. The barracks, terrible. If you go to Nyanya, it's an eyesore. But it didn't start today. It didn't start with this IG. It didn't start with the former IG. It's been long coming. And when you look at your counterparts in other services and where they live, I mean, it's better. When you go to the bank to collect your pension, I recall an ASP who went with an Air Force warrant officer from the same village in my area. He says, we went to the bank. That man collected 96,000 for his pension. I collected 25,000. And these things have demoralizing effect. And so, when you want to fight crime, you've got to prioritize the welfare of personnel. Look at the number of police officers that die in the line of duty. What is the condition of their families? So the issue of rising crime and all that, yes, there is a correlation, but not completely responsible. The factors are several, so many. But I think we've got to prioritize the welfare of our personnel. Because you see some of the exchange that happen. When you have personnel run 12 hours, some 24 hours, and there is no other way. Because when you go to the divisions, how many officers do you have there? Therefore, those that you have, the commander, the local unit commander or the DPO has no choice to say, okay, we can't cover 8 hours. When I was appointed into the Nigeria Police Force, we were running 8-hour shift, in which case you can go home, prepare and come. But if I have to do 12 hours, I get to the house before I could even, if I live in Suleja and I'm working in Garki, before I come, it takes so long. Tell me, if I go on duty, yeah, the officers are not likely to sleep on duty. And when you are posted to a beat and you sleep on duty, you cannot be said to be offering effective service. So welfare has got a lot to do. But like I want to repeat, it did not start with this IG or even the previous IG, but it is something that police reform, several committees, police reform, police reorganization. But central to all of this is the issue of welfare. When, let me tell you, as a commissioner of police, when personnel die in the line of duty, their burial, the burial expenses never get paid. They are accumulated. I think the recent approval given by the president spanned, I think, from 2012 to date. That means you ask the DPU or the Commissioner of Police or the community where these officers hail from have to organize themselves to get a bus, to get the casket, and to convey, and to wait for 3-4 years before the family is even able to get the burial expenses, which should have been even paid before this officer. So tell me, those who are there, is it going to be easy for them? So I think the issue of budget has got to be addressed. The police trust fund, I think, is a welcome development. I appeal that it will continue to be allowed to function. And the police pension, thank God the police has its own pension this year, but the take home at the end of the month is very difficult for officers who have retired. And this does not encourage this personnel. So even in the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter, physiological needs, these are important. I should be able to send your children to school, pay a salary. If you have a motorbike, you should be able to buy a tire once it is bad. I mean, it's something that should be done. But I think the welfare of Nigerian police officers is so poor. When I went on mission several years ago, my mission subsistence allowance for 2 days with the UN was my monthly salary in Nigeria. My daily mission subsistence allowance for 2 days had covered my monthly salary and the exchange. So it's such a terrible thing.
It's really interesting to hear all of that from you. Now, this question is going to be kind of on the flip side. You will agree with me that the Nigeria police, is already struggling with image problem, and this is further exacerbated by the fact that the Nigerian police like to collect bribes, and a lot of people, quite a number of people, complain about this. So is this a justification, for them to actually do that?
Come in again.
The Nigerian police like to collect bribe, and a lot of people, you'll agree with me that the Nigerian police, is struggling with image problem. So is the lack of welfare, a factor failing this?
Well, the NPF is a product of its high environment. I wouldn't think that the NPF is more corrupt than, unfortunately, than other agencies. And yes, NPF struggles with image. But if Nigerians realize the police they have, they would handle them even with more love, care, and consideration. And I say it with all sense of responsibility. I have had the privilege of serving outside the shores of Nigeria with police forces from more than 27 countries, in fact, in one case, up to 50 countries. And the NPF holds its head high. When we were in Namibia in 1989-90, we were rated as one of the best police forces. But if the Nigerians realize, they will get to trust and have confidence and treat their police force. I am not saying there are no areas of improvement. Of course, for every institution, there are areas of improvement. But if you go very close for journalists and others who work closely with the NPF, yes, there are issues of corruption. You are on the road, you collect 5 naira, 100 naira, you stop people. And these are things that successive police management work every day to deal with. And the NPF continually continue to deal with staff that fall out of place. And so my appeal, therefore, is that the NPF personnel are no angels, but I'm telling you that a lot is going on to deal with disciplinary issues. Officers are continually dismissed, they are disciplined, but unfortunately, some officers still go with all that the management is doing to bring professionalism. There are still bad eggs. Of course, among the 12, you always find a Judas. And those people are never treated with kid gloves. So it's not the system permitting officers to do. But then, when the welfare is bad, some of them also go out of their way. Because if you, I always pose this question. If you're a member of the House of the National Assembly, and when you visit your constituency, how many police stations have you taken time to visit? What questions do you ask the DPO or the OC? What is your fuel supply per week for your patrol vehicle? What is the maintenance level? I mean, these are things that Nigerians should interrogate, and journalists. And it's important to check. And then you ask yourself, DPO, then how are you buying fuel for your vehicle? Those guys on patrol, how are you buying fuel for your patrol vehicle? It's a situation whereby they give you, as a commissioner of police, I was at this police staff college. I was heading a unit, the Central Planning and Training Unit. In a quarter, my allocation was 25 to 30,000. I was expected to buy fuel. I was expected to maintain the pickup that is not new. And so most of the time we just park it, and I use my private car, go to work and back. So the question is sad when officers engage in corrupt practice, because it will demean, because the public is supposed to have confidence and trust that when I make a report, the outcome will not be influenced by corrupt practice, that a complainant will not become a suspect because he greased the palm of officers. But officers, senior officers, are doing a lot to ensure that the officers comply. But but personnel of the force should recognize that when you engage in corrupt practice, there should be that fear of losing something, that this organization, if I'm dismissed, and it happens. And that is why some of them, after 10 years, they are still fighting to come back. But the lack of adequate welfare, I see some officers who do not have the capacity to cope, to engage in unwholesome practice, which has demeaned the name of the force. You will not know that this MPF, when you go outside Nigeria, when we work in team sites, as they call them, like various places, and our colleagues from other nations, the UK police, the Indians, and they say, look, when you have a station, because they ask nationalities to head some stations, everybody want to work with personnel of the MPF, because these guys work, they're never tired, they're well taken care of, they have vehicles to work with. In Nigeria, you have a division of 200 personnel, you have only one rickety or two rickety vehicles, whereas the standard is about 2 or 3 police officers to one vehicle. There is no police division in Nigeria that has vehicles that personnel can patrol. So the tools, even the tools to work, in addition to welfare, are not even there. How can you patrol? How can you respond? Of course, we're lucky. In the FCT is a little bit lucky. When the former one-time minister, Dr. Ali Modibo, was there, he bought a lot of vehicles, and the people of the FCT saw that the MPF can be effective, the MPF can be professional, the MPF can be responsible. So these are things that people in position should make effort to utilize the security vote they have transparently to assist their communities by providing the tools and the welfare needed so that the MPF can be the force for good.
We really hope that happens. Now, Mr. Stephen Okori is still with us in the studio. He's not out of the conversation. You've heard from Mr. Wilson, image problem and welfare. What are your thoughts about that?
For me, I think it's disheartening that at this point in time, the 21st century, we are talking about tools to work with and the welfare of the police. If you look at it, the police is like, I think they are 92 years old. So for me, I think that would have gone past this level of talking about tools, welfare for the police to make them succeed in carrying out discharging their duties. You know, for the police to succeed, this welfare and the tools, they are major factors that will enable them to prevent crime or fight crime in this country. So I think that succession plans within the police is also contributing to these issues we are talking about. Every IG that is appointed comes with his own policy or programs, you know, meaning that the outgone one's own policy or programs are abandoned. You know, he comes with his own new policy and programs, and he wants to take or shine or take the day during his tenure. You know, I think that it should be, the Nigerian police is one, is an institution that is saddled the responsibility of providing, what do you call it, protecting lives and property of citizens, fighting the internal security challenges or issues. So it's not a personal institution. There should be policies and programs on ground. If an IG goes, a new one comes on board, it should continue like that. Right. You know, but it doesn't even happen like that for me, the way I look at it. So succession plans should be on ground. A new one comes in, he takes over from there, and he continues with whatever the previous one has stopped. You know, like for instance, the community policing thing that we're talking about. So a couple of months or years ago, 13-point-something billion naira was released to kickstart the process. How far did that funds go? We're not even talking about that. So for me, I think that there's a lot that we need to do. This is 92 years that we've had police in existence. It's even older than Nigeria. So there's a lot, there's the systemic problem too. You know, the system for me, it's okay. The operators of the system, who happens to be police themselves, what are they doing? You know, because if you listen to what the AIG said about barriers of police officers that die in the line of duty, they are buried after 3, 4 years. That is when they begin to see how to struggle to get monies that are supposed to be paid for their burial.
Quite tragic.
So very, very, very tragic. So it goes to show that the operators of the system, who happens to be police officers, are messing up. So for me, I think that certain punishment should be melted for people like that, because it's disheartening because they will fall, all of them are vulnerable in what we are talking about. Nobody owns life. Right. It can happen to them. So if you are in the system, you make it work.
Interesting. I think I'll direct this, at Mr. Wilson. He talked about there's a form of corrupt, practice happening within the Nigerian police force. Would you say that is also failing, the whole situation that we're seeing with the lack of welfare, in the Nigerian police force?
First of all, I support the fact that any fund that is released to the NPF should be judiciously utilized to meet the pressing needs and urgent needs of the NPF. But how much is even released? After paying salaries, what do you have to work with? I think it's recognition of that the Police Trust Fund was set up. And I'm not trying to absolve some people of corrupt practice, but I think we have checks and balances. We have supervision and the rest of them. If you put it that it is solely corruption that is responsible for that, then I think, because I think the last approval the president granted for payment of accumulated burial expenses took so many years. So if somebody had played with that funds, I'm sure the person would have been held accountable. So in as much as we talk about the issues of corruption, which I will not say, don't hesitate, we've got to ask how much is voted for the NPF? How much is released? What is it able to do? Because if you that is one thing I think we need to address. The issue of succession plan, and I think the successive management of MPF comes with strategies, the community policing, intelligence-led policing, and the rest of them. Now, I think no IG can come and say, look, I'm not following community policing, even before it was pronounced. Even the man who is just entering the police to have the basic training understands that without the public, I cannot succeed. So that scheme is still alive in the various IGs, and I think it's been improved upon. So if anybody comes and say, look, my strategy, welfare for officers, intelligence-led policing, community policing, whichever way you call it, police is such an institution that the issue of management of crime and all that, there are laid down procedures. The changes are very, 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 very slight. But I agree with you that it should be in place in such a way that might be in the next 4 years, 6 years, we should know who those likely to become IG and should have some kind of mentoring and the rest of them. But if we just ascribe it that the officers on top are chopping all the money and that is why the welfare of personnel, I don't know how an IG can be giving money to build the barracks or renovate the barracks and will take the money and nothing will happen. I think one thing, when you interact with senior police officers, you see their pain. They want to work, but where is the money? So if you just believe that, oh, they have eaten all the money, something would have, happened. Let us, and we all have a role to play. When we are saying community policing, it's about the police and the community coming together to adopt common approach to solve problems. So if the community believes that, look, my division, they've given them money. Each time you call them, they say there is no fuel. There are laid down procedures they can follow. And the police is one that has the greatest checks and balances. You have the Ministry of Police Affairs. You have the Police Service Commission. You have the Complaints Response Unit, I think, CRU. You have the various levels. So police is extremely transparent that the public can come and say, look, each time we call on this, they say they don't have fuel. It's something that can also be investigated. Okay, you are not giving fuel. We gave this amount for fuel. Why are they not responding? So there are methods of checking. I am not trying to hold brief for any person whatsoever, but I'm just trying to say, look, pick the budget of the police and study it carefully. Thank God that the budget is one the president signs it, they become public documents. You go to the National Assembly, you go to the government printer, you can get soft copy, you can get hard copies. And you study it, it's okay. And in that way, you are, even the Freedom of Information Act also that was passed. So let us join hands with the government, with the citizens, to support the police. It's not only in the way of giving information, but going deeper than the surface to look at the utilization of budget, because the budgets that are made, they are not result, they are not result-oriented budgeting. You just give an envelope. You don't say, okay, we have insurgency or banditry in the Northwest in 5, 6 states. What if the IG comes through? We have this, but okay, how do you deal with it? Sir, we don't have fuel, we don't have a vehicle, we don't have personnel. Okay, what can you do to do it? Okay, if you fuel our helicopters, you buy us vehicles, okay, we are going to buy this for you. Within 3 months, within 6 months, what are you likely to achieve with it? Okay, we can bring it down by 50%. We can bring it down by 20%. And every month or every quarter, you are holding that officer accountable. How many of our public officers even sit with their commissioners of police to look at the issue of crime critically? So if you just ascribe it to corruption, you'll be missing the point. It's about being responsible. It's about taking it as your duty. And that's what happens in other places. You are a county police officer, police chief. You meet with the elected officials, and you say you present a budget. They give you the rate of might be crime, sexual violence, rape, and other things. And it's okay. What do you need to deal with this crime? They say, okay, we need this, we need that. And they hold you to it. Because what does not, the Englishman said, what does not get measured does not get done. So how many governors, how many chairmen? On a weekend, once in 3 months, you sit with your commissioner of police, you begin to review your crime. This is what he requested for. If you give me this, I'll deal with that. And even the community can also interrogate their OC or DPO. Oh, DPO, you say your vehicles are broken down. We have contributed money. We fixed it for you. Yet, our women can't go to the market. They get mocked when they go to the market. You see, when you begin to follow this, that is why when we say policing is everybody's responsibility, it's not everybody carrying gun. It's not everybody giving information, but everybody making that guy in that position doing what he's supposed to do.
Okay.
Whether you like it or not, the level of personnel the MPF has is grossly understaffed. Because when you don't have all the required technology you need, which should be force multiplier, it means you've got to have more officers on patrol on the streets.
Okay, I think I'm going to hold you there. We're going to get back to that conversation. I would like to hear from Mr. Stephen now. There are reports that the Nigerian police, particularly the ones from the junior cadre, are going to be staging a protest on the 26th of March. Would you say that is going to change anything? Would that influence any change? And also, would you say there is synergy between the Nigerian security operatives?
I think the hierarchy of the Nigerian police have debunked that statement saying that the police are going to go on strike or protest. But for me, if we allow such a situation to happen, such event to happen, then it means that it's a failure on the part of the government, because whether we like it or not, when you go to the street and begin to ask questions about the activities of the Nigerian police from citizens, a lot of them will say things that won't be palatable to our ears, but despite that, you cannot take the service that they render in protecting citizens of this country for granted. The police are doing quite a lot. They're doing quite a lot. So I expect that whatever they are trying to protest for, the government should critically look into it, because it doesn't tell well for a country like Nigeria to be in the news that their police, other ranks are trying to protest or are protesting against certain things that is not due to them. Because the fact of the matter is that they are in the line of duty. They are the ones. They are taking a lot of risk on behalf of citizens of this country. Sometimes when I travel and I see them on the road, maybe at night, and they flag you down, I begin to look at the risk that they are taking for us as citizens of this country. Because the person that they are flagging down, they don't even know what the person is carrying. We have seen situations where a lot of them were killed on the highway. Some time ago in this Galadimawa roundabout here in Abuja, about 6 of them were killed. And it's happening in some other places. Even during the NSAS period, about 22 of the police officers were also killed. So they take risk on behalf of us. So I think that the government needs to provide everything that is required of them, to see that the police function very, very well. Just the way I said, police is 92 years old, so there are certain things we shouldn't be talking on TV about what the police requires to function very well.
Really very interesting. Now, Mr. Wilson, earlier you talked about the risks, the Nigerian police is always taking on behalf, of the people. And also you talked about, synergy between the people, and the Nigerian police. In your assessment, would you say there is enough synergy, that will help us win the fight against insecurity in Nigeria?
I think that's to some extent the missing link, because some members of the public view the police with suspicion, and so the cooperation and collaboration they should maintain with the personnel of the force is not accorded that important attention. But you've got to trust your police. And then coordination and synergy among security agencies, I think it's a cause for improvement. And another thing is, I think there is a need. This government, you don't have money. And there is a kind of proliferation of security agencies with duplication of duty. And this is a man who cannot maintain one wife. He's married more wives. It's going to cause problems. So I think government should address the issue of proliferation that lead to sometimes interagency rivalry. Some, we will not say it is correct, but these things happen. For any security, for any community or society to have effective security, all must become partakers. All must become stakeholders. And in the stakeholder, you bring your contribution. Even the CCTV you have privately installed in your house, there are periods that if you see certain things recorded on that, you find a way of passing it to the police. The government does not have to put CCTV in every nook and cranny before you say there's CCTV. A lot of homes in our urban centers have CCTV. All this, they should help the police and other security agencies. So if there is effective synergy, we are going to drive down crime without firing shots. When you talk about kidnap, mass kidnap and all, people negotiate to collect ransom. Maybe some of these monies are even paid to financial institutions or banks. Maybe they go to the market to buy animals or other things. The cooperation, collaboration and coordination between the police and the public, the police and other security agencies will go a long way to drive down crime. In that community, somebody just comes, you've not seen him before, you're a food seller, he comes to buy food for 10 individuals, for 15, you've never seen him, you didn't raise it, you didn't tell the village head, you didn't tell the ward head, you didn't tell your husband or somebody to say, look, some people came to buy food, they bought 20 loaves of bread, I have never seen them before. In this way, you are multiplying the force. You are multiplying the personnel because you are doing what they are supposed to do. I think there is still room for improvement in coordination, in collaboration, and synergy among security agencies. Once we do that, we will bring every crime, no matter how serious, be it banditry, be it the crime, terrorism, armed robbery, bank robbery, because these people gather. So people operating gardens, people in hotels, people in saloon, either barbing or otherwise, people operating Okada, taxi drivers, NURTW shouldn't be collecting only ticket on the road, in the park, and fighting over their collection. They should cooperate. They should measure their performance. Within 3 months, how many times have I gone to create the DPO? Not even with money. So there is the need for collaboration. There is a need to support security agencies, especially the NPF, lay their living conditions so that when they wake up from that fairly okay house and they're on the road, there will be more civility because he slept well.
Right. Okay, now quickly before we wrap up, the program, in just 1 minute, You would agree with me that at the moment we are short on security operatives, and that too given to the fact that we lost quite a number, of security operatives in the last 1 year. So what is the way forward? Is it to recruit more, or what should the government do at this time?
There is a need to embark on accelerated recruitment exercise. Possibly the Police Service Commission and the IG set up a task force for accelerated recruitment, so that, and then make more spaces available for training of these officers, even engage some retired officers competent, so that you can expand. There is a need to beef up the number of personnel at the various divisions. The number right now, I think, is not adequate to carry out the onerous responsibility they are tasked with. Two, I think there is a need to have a kind of, I left the force, it's up to 3 years now. There might be a registered mortgage finance institution, just like the police community bank, the police pension administration. Maybe we should have a mortgage finance for the MPF, just like we have the community policing, so that the junior officers will go. Maybe the police money, the police personnel who are staying with the Federal Mortgage Bank, the police can be permitted to exit the Federal Mortgage Bank arrangement, and the police will have her own police mortgage finance house that will make it less cumbersome.
Right.
Because when I retired from the force,
it looks like I'll have to cut you
yes,
short because
you.
we don't have much time. Let's just get final thoughts, from Mr. Steeping.
Okay, I think that the current hierarchy of the police under the leadership of Alkali Baba should carry out the task of putting the needs assessment package together, what the police needs to see how to function very well. Put it together. In that package, recruitment, welfare, and all that will be contained in it, and see how to make a good presentation to the executive and to the National Assembly to see how to support them in exercising or making those needs come out very well.
Really, really interesting, and we look forward to seeing that being implemented. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We've been speaking with a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Inagulu, and also security consultant Stephen Okoro, talking to us about security and the welfare of our security operatives. Well, with this, we've come to the end of Daybreak for today. It's been quite interesting, and if you've missed, you can catch up with us across all our social media platforms. I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.